So I just watched the Wuthering Heights movie that came out recently. I have not read the book. Quite deliberately, when this was announced, I was like, okay, I'll watch it first, then read the book, because in my experience, if I read the book first, I will definitely not like the movie, probably. I'm not sure I needed to have bothered. I suspect this is not a very accurate adaptation. I don't know enough of the story to be certain of that, but based on everything about this movie, it just did not give me the vibe that it was a faithful adaptation at all. It seemed to be going in its own direction. At least that's my feel. I don't actually know the story. Maybe it is exactly like this, but considering the time that Wuthering Heights was written in, I find that unlikely. What I did like about it was the chemistry. I thought their relationship felt intense. That's kind of its strength. Unfortunately for me, that intensity was overshadowed by the set design. I'm not usually one to notice set design, which is funny to say since my most famous video was all about set design. But in any case, usually that's not something that really is in the forefront of my mind. But in this, right away, and for the entire film, there felt like this extreme disconnect between the landscape, the costuming, and the architecture. I didn't believe in the world. The world they were trying to build and the world that these characters took place in just didn't feel believable in any sense. They were clearly going for that to some respect. It felt kind of, or at least landscape-wise, very surrealist. The architecture of the house was so kind of ridiculous and extreme, and some of the shots in the background were so extreme. I almost had this, what is that French director's name? That guy. Or Tim Burton. In fact, it reminded me a lot of Edward Scissorhands in the sense that there's these big imposing buildings set with things that are of a different vibe, right? There's these very pristine, crisp, imposing buildings, and then this very soft and moody landscape and grimy clothes and all of this, and it felt very patchwork and inconsistent. And it reminded me of Edward Scissorhands in a way, with that big imposing building in the middle of fake Burbank, that kind of shot. But the big difference and why that, as whimsical and ridiculous as that is, kind of worked and I believed in that world, comes down to its establishing shots. You get a shot in that movie, for example, of that really big, imposing, ridiculous building and the pastel colors of Burbank in the same shot. You know where they are location-wise. It's ridiculous that they're together, but with your own eyes, you can see them together, right? This story, each location feels so disconnected from each other. You never get a sense of an establishing shot where anything is in relationship to each other. Where is Wuthering Heights in relation to its neighboring mansion that somehow inexplicably exists? What is the time period? Who knows? You could be oh, when the book was written, that's not what it felt like. This didn't feel like England. It didn't feel like a time period. It just felt this anachronistic, wild place out of time, which I think was on purpose, but there was nothing to ground the film in anything. So, you have a shot of them at Wuthering Heights. You have a shot them in the garden of the neighboring mansion, or in the mansion itself, or in the fields between them. But since there is no connective tissue between them visually, right? You don't know where anyone is. I'm not usually keeping track of that sort of thing because I have tragic sense of direction, but I didn't think that mattered so much, but it really mattered. The place didn't feel real. It felt like a bunch of sets. And it's very weird how strongly I felt that way, where you didn't believe in where this is. And I think if those characters were more absurdist, it would kind of work. But the characters as wild and bombastic as they are, their relationship with each other is kind of very human and very messy and very real in a sense, and vicious and ugly and passionate and intense. And that human real element is so not supported, in my opinion, by the world it inhabits. Like, some of the costumes are gorgeous, but I don't understand how they exist, right? And what fashion are they following? What time period is this? It just doesn't... I don't understand why this bothered me so much for the whole film. Not just like at a little part of it, but like the whole film. And then just parts of it were even more extreme. I mean, there's a moment in this story where it's supposed to be like a very serious scene with a dead body, and in the back of it is a visual gag that is so extreme and ridiculous that it takes you right out of the movie. There's a bunch of wine bottles behind the person, but stacked on top of each other, and it's such a ridiculous thing. It looks like a scene out of Willy Wonka, I guess. Like, it's so extreme. I don't know. I didn't buy it. I didn't buy the world. The performances were fine. There was a lot more sex in it than I suspect Wuthering Heights, the book, had. Like, it was very... it was very sexual and focused on that, and probably because, in a sense, that was its strength, was those two characters, so they just kind of shoved them together and focused on that a lot. It might do well because of that, because I think the characters were passionate about each other, intense, mad, and the performances worked. For a romance like this, and for some people, that's all you need. But not for me. I'm definitely going to read the book now. I'm kind of curious about what the story actually is, because I'm pretty confident it wasn't that. But what did you think of the Wuthering Heights movie? Tell me in the comments below, and if you want to see more reviews like this, please subscribe. Also, I have a book, Bonesong, Diary of a Sentient Sword. But what is Bonesong, you ask? It is an ongoing story from the perspective of a sentient sword, and the sword is trying to save the city of its blacksmiths, but has to handle different wielders and different motivations of those wielders. Very fun story, a very, very fast-paced. I use what I like to call the potato chip method of storytelling, where each chapter is... You can't just read one chapter. I think I succeeded in that. I release a chapter a week for free in the link below. Happy reading. Take care.